Well, good evening, everyone. This is Barb Bruce, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Better Together Facebook Live Show. I am your host, and here on the Better Together Facebook Live Show is where we talk about all of the things, especially on election night. We're talking about our hopes, our dreams, our worries, and our waistlines. And it doesn't matter where you come from or what you've been through. Here on Better Together, we find the hope, the help, as well as the practical next steps so that we can all get better together. And if you're joining me on this election night, I'm glad that you're here, ladies. We are going to just forget about what's happening in the world, and we are going to have a beautiful time tonight, uplifting and encouraging each other. This is a show that I am glad that you're here for, one that I know you are going to want to share with your friends. So drop into the comments, give me a shout out, and say hello. If you watch the Better Together Facebook Live, you know that we love creating an interactive experience. And I am thankful for my producer, Tabitha. She is taking care of things in the back. And we have some things that we're going to talk about tonight that are going to really encourage you. So share your name in the comments. I think we've got some comments in already. Tabitha, go ahead and pop up. Jennifer Curtis, hello. How you doing? Who else we've got tonight? We've got a number of ladies. Vicky, yes, honey, we're talking about joy, and I've got somebody who's going to talk about how we can hold on to it. As you can tell, I'm just a little excited. Who else is saying hi? Thanks for jumping in the comments, ladies. Hi, Missy. Good to see you. Who else, ladies? Hi, Terry. Happy Tuesday to you. So glad to have you here. And wow, we've got comments coming on in, ladies. You guys know how much I love it. So Jennifer says that she left Flint, Michigan, escaped to Idaho for a week, and now sitting in the Montana. Jennifer, you have covered some territory, honey. Good for you. Well, so ladies, tonight, your icebreaker question is, what are you doing tonight? I know you're watching the Facebook Live, but what else are you doing this evening? I don't know. Are you eating ice cream? Are you watching the kids hang out? But just tell me how you are doing today. That's the icebreaker question. Tell me how you are doing today. And in a few moments, I'm going to introduce tonight's guest to you. But I am glad that you are here this evening because it is a long day. And I know that depending on how you're doing, this might be a day full of stress, or maybe you're doing okay. But tonight we're talking about joy. And we're talking about how to hold on to it. And so before we do that, I do want to tell you about one important thing coming up, and then I'm going to get to the comments. So keep those comments coming in so that we can engage with each other. But starting next week, I am excited that I will be participating in the 2020 Christian Women Self-Care Conference. And you'll see a photo here on the screen in just a moment. The Christian Women's Self-Care Conference is a national online event, and it is for all of us who struggle with self-care. This is a conference where you are going to hear from dozens of speakers, literally dozens of speakers across the country. Let me go this way. Here we go. And I am going to share my Taking Care of You message. And the Christian Women's Self-Care Conference, it's free. Tabitha is going to drop a link in the comments that you can go in and register. There's like already over 3,000 women who are registered for this free event. And as I said, on day 2 of the conference next week, I'm going to be sharing my Taking Care of You talk. So this is something I'm really excited about. And so you can check the comments and get the link. But now let's go ahead and hear from some ladies. Tonight's icebreaker question before I introduce our guest. What are you up to? How you doing this evening? Tabitha, who we got? Terry, she's like, Paco's chicken for dinner? Nice. And a good book to look forward to. Beautiful. Who's next? Oh, Tabitha Pop. Thank you for popping that up, Tabitha. Jennifer told you Rona ain't slowing me down. That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you were able to get away. And let's hear from one more. What are you doing this evening? We got a lot of comments coming in, and I'll tell you why that's a good thing in just a moment. Do we have one more comment? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Cool. Is it virtual? Yes. The Christian Women's Self-Care Conference is a virtual event. And so you can go to the link and check it out. But let me go ahead and introduce tonight's guest to you. And the reason why I've been all excited is because she is someone that I deeply admire. And so Suzanne Eller is a best-selling author, a Bible teacher, and podcaster. Suzie has served with Proverbs 31 Ministries for 14 years as a writer and speaker. She's been featured on numerous media outlets such as Focus on the Family, 100 Huntley Street, Aspiring Women, K-Love, Daystar, and many others, y'all. Suzie is the co-host of More Than Small Talk podcast, along with Holly Girth and Jennifer Watson. This popular podcast reaches women across the world. It's amazing, y'all. It's part of the KLRC Podcast Network, and to tune in, find them on your favorite podcast app. Suzie has been married to Richard for 40 years and is the mom of 3 grown children and their spouses. She's in love with 6 littles who call her Gaga. Suzie's favorite things to do are hiking, kayaking, dancing to music at the farmer's market with her littles. Friends, I have a copy of Suzie's book here, Joy Keeper. I'll be giving it away this evening, this copy right here. And that is based on how you engage in the comments. So please give a warm Better Together welcome for my friend, Suzanne Eller.
Hey.
Hello, good evening. As you can tell, I'm excited to have you here.
I love that, Barb. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but with you tonight.
And it really feels like a divine appointment that you are here to talk to us about holding on to joy on election night. My goodness gracious. And so, Suzie, for you, let's acknowledge that tonight is difficult. And so do you just have something on your heart that you want to share with the women who are they're not sure how they're doing tonight?
Yeah, I've really been praying because it's so easy in this really hard season to feel completely weighed down, to feel heavy, to feel like joy is impossible. And, as I've been praying, and I honestly I've been praying, I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? And every single time I put that prayer out there, I hear the Lord saying, tell him to come to me. Tell him to come back to me. He is the only one right now that honestly deserves our 100% focus. But it's more than that. It's that we're exhausted. It's that we're sad. We're conflicted. And he offers us rest that goes deep into our spiritual bones and our heart and syncs our heart in rhythm with his. And I just can't think of a time when we need that more.
Yes. And so just that idea of come to me. And my prayer this evening is that we create space for women to do that, to reconnect with a God who is their source of joy.
Yeah.
And so tonight we're going to talk about some of the big principles from Joy Keeper. Sure. Because would you say that you are a woman that joy naturally comes to?
Well, I would say that I am, Barb, a woman who joy that it naturally comes to. But this book was written out of a season of extended sorrow. And in fact, there came a time when I looked at that season and I started to call it scarred. Because I felt scarred in my heart, felt scarred, and I was scarred on my body. And I began to search for something deeper. I began to ask the Lord, you promised joy. And I know it can't be tied to my circumstances, because right now I am snot-nosed, my face is in the carpet, and I am reaching out for you. But Lord, is there a different definition of joy than what we think it is? And man, he led me to these deep waters where I realized that joy is more than a feeling. Our feelings matter to God so much, but joy is more than a feeling. It's a knowing.
that is such a powerful principle in your book, because as you open Joy Keepers and you talk about Scarred, it was just even in the first 2 pages where
Yeah.
you write about your daughter's cancer diagnosis. You
Mm-hmm.
reference your first cancer diagnosis and
Mm-hmm.
then a second one. And it really felt like in that moment where I just went, my goodness. But
Yeah.
you do start off by saying that joy is about knowing versus feeling.
Yeah.
Why do we need to make that distinction?
Well, I think that we need to make that distinction because if joy is simply a feeling, then we don't have it when we're down. It boomerangs. If joy is just a feeling, I'm going to wonder why someone else has it and maybe it's not for me. If joy is just a feeling, then when I don't feel giddy or happy, I'm going to somehow think that I am disappointing God because I am not like reflecting happiness. But this is the deal. When we shift from joy as a feeling to joy as a knowing, joy is knowing where to turn, Barb. Joy is knowing who I am. Joy is knowing what is mine to fix and what is not mine to fix. Joy is knowing that every promise and every plan that God spoke over my heart, it has not gone anywhere. It may look different, but it has not gone anywhere. And so it's a shift. It's just that shift from going by our feelings to stepping into the security of what we know, which can't be taken from us.
Mm, I think we want to say that again. The security of what we know that
Which
cannot
can't
be
be taken
taken
from
from us.
us. No.
Woo! That is a whole word for tonight,
Yeah.
because I believe that even whether, ladies, you're watching this live or on the replay, there is that feeling that something, depending on which candidate won, that we're going to lose something,
Yeah.
and this feeling is perpetuated. Um, so, ladies, if you're listening tonight, one of the questions that we want to ask you is, where do you need more joy in your life? Like, where are some places where you're struggling right now? Is it with your family? Is it where you're feeling discouraged at your job or feeling discouraged in your finances? You can share what you feel comfortable sharing, but I would love, Suzie and I would love to know where you're looking for more joy. Now, Suzie, you do say that God does care about how
Yeah.
we feel.
So much. So much. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so I think that when we're in a valley, and this, I want to say that this is not a book written for just if you're in a hard place, because this is the thing, is that sometimes, even when we're in that sweet, sweet season where everything is going like we want it to, we can hold on to joy so tightly like a balloon, like we're going to pop it because we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're so afraid to even be in that season. But one of the greatest joy stealers that we can encounter in a hard season or not is somehow the belief that if we are sad or mad or frustrated or confused, that is disappointing to God. But God not only cares about how we feel, Barb, He created us to feel. He created us to feel. Those feelings are indicators maybe where we need Him most. Not only that, I think about one of the most beautiful stories in the Bible is when Jesus comes to Mary and Martha, and they are sad, and they're also a little bit miffed because their brother has passed away. And what does Jesus do? Jesus knows what's around the corner. He knows things are going to be okay. He knows that in just a few moments, Lazarus is going to bust out of that tomb and surprise them all. Mary and Martha don't know that. But what does Jesus do? Does he say, have faith? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Hey, if you were stronger. He doesn't do any of that. He weeps with them, even knowing what's around the corner. And when I think of where we're at tonight, if there's a word for us, is that Yes, he knows what's around the corner. But if you right now are confused or frustrated or upset or sad, or you don't even know what you're feeling, like it's just been such a long season, I want you to know that he is the safest, most secure place that you can go and say, honestly, as a truth teller to God, just say, hey, I know you love me and I love you back. And right now I am sad to the core, God, over the way the world is, and I don't know what to do about it. But I invite you into that place that you'll just take up residence there, that you'll just come on in. And he knows what's around the corner. But I can promise you the character of God is that he's going to take that moment with you, and he's going to be with you in that moment.
Oh, ladies, I want you to just create some space to let that sink in. Just to let that sink in, because especially when we beat ourselves up for having difficult emotions, thinking that God's disappointed us, that reminds me of, so I'm going to read a part from Joy Keepers. And ladies, this evening, as I mentioned, I'm giving away this copy. So share just your thoughts in the comments. Tabitha is going to be choosing a winner a little later. But Suzie, you write in Joy Keepers, when you're talking about sharing your feelings with God, you said talking through your feelings with God is the safest place to begin. A conversation with God may lead you to a godly friend or counselor who can help you continue to sort through your feelings.
Yeah.
And then you said, once you share how you feel with Jesus, oh, I love this, you bring it to the one who sees the whole picture. He understands your motivations, where you need help or rest or assurance, or as well as those areas where you need to grow, change direction, trust, or wait.
Yeah.
Woo,
Yeah.
that is good. That is good.
There was a moment. Now, when I wrote this book and I turned it in, there was not a pandemic. And not only that, I had not, even though I had been diagnosed with melanoma, my daughter was cancer, my son had went through a dark, hard place. The light was on whenever I turned in this book. And I thought, whew, I'm going to take a deep breath. We are doing okay now. I didn't realize I was going to get to walk through this message for another year, because I was diagnosed with breast cancer for the second time. And then my husband, who is a runner, who has no issues whatsoever as far as he had low blood pressure, he had a massive heart attack. That happened within 4 days of each other. And then we had a pandemic and an election and all the things. And so I've been walking this in such a deep way. And there was one morning when I went to the hospital. My husband was about to have open heart surgery. And I'm just, like I said, I'm just like, again, like, what is going on? And we had this freak ice storm the night before. And I went out the next day. My husband had pulled up in front of the emergency room. The car was parked at an angle. He stumbled in. He was having this massive heart attack. And when I went out to the car, like I said, November's usually beautiful, but it was like we had this freak ice storm, and I was trying to get in the car. I had been diagnosed with breast cancer again 3 days earlier. I couldn't get in the car. I finally did. Then I couldn't find an ice scraper. And for whatever reason, the ice scraper was like the last straw, you know? And I remember just shutting that door and being in the igloo of a car and just beating the steering wheel and wailing and going, Lord, what is happening? And I laid across there and just wept and said, this is what I know. You love me. You love my husband. You have not gone anywhere. Your plans for us have not gone away. But Lord, I am sad. And I am confused. And you know what? There are these moments, and I'm not a crier. I'm not but there's these moments where there's this marker of trust that is put down when we are honest with God that says, there's no one else to go to but you. And Lord, not only am I going to come to you, I'm bringing it all like every tear, every confusion, when we give ourselves permission to be honest with God, we're not only giving ourselves permission to feel, we're giving ourselves permission to heal.
Say that again for louder for the people in the back,
Sure.
Susie.
When we give ourselves permission right now, today, right where you're at, to be honest with God, you're not only giving yourself permission to feel what you need to feel, you're giving yourself permission to heal.
And I wanted Susie to say that again because that is the real truth. I remember reading your Instagram posts about within the last week about that day when your husband had his heart attack, because you and I have only met in recent months, and you were talking through that story. And I think that it is such a powerful moment for you to share and say, yes, there have been times when I just had to beat on the car and say, God, I just don't get it. And yes, and I don't know about you, but for me, one of the most vital connections that I have with God is the ability to be honest with Him.
Yeah.
Because when I can be honest with God about how much it hurts, how hard it is, then that keeps that conduit of communication open, that I can share the worst of the worst with God and have the assurance that He loves me and that He cares about me and that He isn't like, ooh, Barb, that was too much.
Yeah, that's relationship, Barb. That's relationship. We have a relationship with the Most High God, and who else could take that from me in that moment and just allow me to do what I do and not go anywhere? He didn't go away. He was still there.
I think we got to preaching a little much, and I believe that somebody was trying to interrupt that.
That's all right. I just kept on talking. I just kept on.
I don't know what happened there, but I feel like woo! Because Susie, you are delivering a word, and I think they're like, woo! We have some ladies who have been sharing some things. And so Tabitha, I think, let's see, we got Melinda Edgington, who talks about how she said, I need to look for joy in the moment. I need to notice the small moments would often hold the greatest gift. I'm experiencing so many challenges and uncertainties and thinking that joy will be in the next season. No, there's joy in the moment if I look for it.
Yes. Well, I think that I have become a joy noticer. In this hardest, darkest season, I've become a joy noticer. And one of the things that I remember is, being in this place where nothing was going the way that I thought it would. And I began to see people. Now, it's easy right now to be cynical, even about God's people, because we're a mess right now. And I remember, when I say we're a mess, I'm pointing at me too. But when I look at the people that just showed up for us, people left fruit on our doorstep. People sent cards. People showed up, and there was one moment that was probably the sweetest moment, and it was after we got Richard well. It was time for me, because I had been diagnosed with cancer, to have a double mastectomy, and we called it our double season: double heart bypass, double mastectomy. You got to have a hashtag, right? And so anyway, so I had went through a double mastectomy. We were now in the midst of a pandemic, so isolation, and I was going into surgeries alone. I've had 3 this last year. Richard was having to just drop me off at the door. And there was a couple of women who just showed up at my doorstep one day and said, listen, if you want to turn us away, but God has told us we're supposed to come here. And they sat down right where they were and started worshiping. And these were women I knew, but began to just worship and said, the Lord just wanted you to know that He sees you that he's not gone anywhere. And I remember just sitting there with just my face just washed in tears. It was one of the most sweetest, beautiful moments because the Lord allowed two women who felt awkward, who weren't even sure they were doing the right thing. They knew God had asked them to do that. But what this season has done is it's allowed me to become a joy noticer and to say, look at what you just did, God. Yeah, I know the world's on fire, but you haven't gone anywhere. Look at what you just did. One of the most beautiful, beautiful biblical definitions of joy is this, is that we consciously walk into God's love and care. That is a biblical definition of joy. And that's when you become a joy noticer, it's in that moment where you realize, Lord, yes, I'm in this hard place, but you're close to me. I noticed that. Lord, my grandson Luke, he just made me a peach cake from scratch, and he showed up on my doorstep because Gaga had surgery, and he's young and his little blonde curls, but all he wanted to do was make sure I see that. I see that. And becoming a joy noticer, it is so critical for us personally. It's that self-care, spiritual self-care. But more than that, Barb, the world is watching. And a joyless church, a joyless people doesn't necessarily draw an unbelieving world to a loving God.
That's right. That's right. Well, and along that vein, being a joy noticer, sometimes it's just really hard. And so Jody Pessendorfer, she popped in a comment. And Jody, I want to applaud you for your courage. And ladies in the comments, for those who sent encouraging messages to Jody, thank you so much. But Tabitha, can you pop Jody's comment up? And so, Suzie, can you speak to this? She says, I never see any results of my prayers. It seems worthless. Yeah. And I know there are times when we can all feel that way. What do you say, Suzie?
Well, I would say to her, first of all, I wish you were here. I wish that I could just reach out and give you a huge hug. I need a hug in this pandemic so bad. I could just reach out and give you a huge hug and let you know that, number one, you're not alone in feeling that. For me, in this season where I wrote the book and then I lived it a second time, it felt like that every time I took a deep breath and I thought things were going to be okay, that something would just knock me down again. And when that happens, it can feel like that our prayers are not being answered. But there's a verse in Jeremiah that I absolutely love and I have held on to. In Jeremiah, I believe 17:7. I hope that's right, 17:7 or 17:7 and 8. But the prophet talks about a tree. And this tree is planted by the water. And this tree, it says the heat comes and the drought comes. And I'm telling you, if you're that tree, you're thinking no prayers are being answered because you're being battered in that heat and that drought. But something that says is that, but because the roots of that tree were in the source of that water, that not only did that tree survive the heat and the drought, but that tree was fruitful. What I love about that is, I thought the last 2 years was going to be what I had planned, which was I was going to be reflecting Jesus on a stage, or I was going to be reflecting Jesus in the ministry he called me to, or all these plans, all these things that I thought I had planned, but they didn't go away. And I want you to think about that tree. That tree, it wasn't like on the other side of the heat and drought that it was just this shriveled up little pod. It was still fruitful. And so maybe I wasn't reflecting Jesus on a stage, but he gave me lots of opportunities to reflect him in that hospital room and in that hard season. And so he was not necessarily giving me all the things that I really, really wanted, which was just to take a deep breath and be okay. But he was showing me his character in ways that allowed me to remain strong, to come out on the other side of it, standing strong. But more than that, is that his plans and his promises did not go away over my life in that season. They just looked different. So I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. And I don't want to give you a pithy statement. I don't want to say it's not hard. I've walked it. I've been there. But I will tell you this, is that there is a source that will hold you in that place where you'll not only come out on the other side of it, but that you will see your prayers answered in maybe a different, more magnificent way than you can imagine.
Amen. I have a completely different circumstance, but it's still the same amen. And so, Jody, thank you for your courage and putting a question that many wonder about. And there have been so many ladies who have popped up comments. Again, thank you to Terry and Lisa and Melinda and Amy for offering encouragement to Jody in the comments.
Yeah.
And so, Suzie, we have talked about how to hold on to joy and that God is okay with us having big feelings. And so your book, Joy Keeper, can you tell the ladies as we're wrapping up about the book and how they can latch onto it and some extra resources?
Sure. So you can go to joykeeper.me. And when you go there, you can download the first chapter, an introduction of the book. There's some other freebies there. And the way that I set up the book is, first of all, it's a very honest, story-driven biblical book that gives you lots of sacred space to work through these things with the Lord, all kinds of reflection questions through it. There's a study guide if you want to do it with a small group. And in the back, because sometimes I need to soak it in after, I did a 30-day devotional where you walk in those truths 5 days at a time until they feel like home.
I love it when you walk in those truths until they feel like home. And so, ladies, we have the place where you can grab it at joykeeper.me. And this evening, as I mentioned, for those who are engaging in the comments, I'm giving Suzie's company provided a book for me to give away. And so in a moment, Tabitha is going to pop the winner up on the screen so that we have it. But Suzie, as we are wrapping up and you are thinking about everything that we've talked about tonight and you really shared your heart with us, do you have any closing encouragement to share?
Yeah, I'm thinking even about just our conversation that we just had. I want you to know that sorrow and joy in the Bible often waltz together, is that Jesus walked through that sorrow place with us, that place of sorrow, and somehow on the other side of that, joy was birthed. And it doesn't make sense in the natural, but supernaturally as we walk with him, there is joy that cannot be taken from you, that is so deeply rooted, that gives you the space to be honest and free, and deeply rooted in a God who loves you like crazy.
That's so good. Well, ladies, I'm so glad that you joined us this evening. Tabitha, who's our winner for Suzie's book? Melinda Edgington, you are the winner of Suzie's book, Joy Keeper. And so, Melinda, you will be getting this. I'll be dropping it in the mail because I got to leave town at the end of the week. But ladies, for everyone who shared comments this evening, you are all rock stars in the comments. Thank you for being a part of our conversation. And Suzie, thank you for bringing a word tonight about how we can hold on to joy. So ladies, if you've got folks in your lives, especially women whose hearts are just weighed down, you can share this episode. You can click share right from my author page. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can grab the link and share it out. You can watch previous episodes of the Better Together Facebook Live at barbruce.com on my blog page. But I want to see you back next week. We've got new episodes every week. I'm so glad that you spent your election evening with me tonight. I love you all. God bless and see you soon.